When's the last time you read a book? And audiobooks don't count. I'm talking about actually cracking open a book or a magazine or something and reading it. What about writing a paragraph? See, there's a reason I'm asking, and it's not because I'm nosy or trying to downplay anyone. It's because literacy levels in the United States is straight up cooked, and I want to know why. That's why I'm so excited about this episode. Not just because it's the first episode of the show, but the importance of it. I'm your host, Cam, and this is The Deeper Scoop, a show where we take a deep dive into people. And not on no possession type vibes or nothing like that. This is like the conversation you have after people watching. I'm going to talk to experts in different fields to gather some intel based on their own experience. And I'll be doing a little digging myself to figure out some of the things I've basically had circulating in my brain for so long. Whether it's an interview or me just yapping away, my goal is to get impactful and niche information and share it. Or who knows, maybe it's not so impactful, I don't know. Y'all be the judge. So, let's dive deeper. Now before we do though, like, comment, subscribe to the channel wherever you're getting this, and flick on those notifications to stay hip. Now that we got that out the way, let's get it. It's 2026. It's kind of crazy to say if you're an unk like me who doesn't look at himself as unk, but clearly is if you ask someone born in 2004. But yeah, we're here. And things are changing. A lot of things. Especially these last few years. And it's scary. It's already enough we went through a worldwide shutdown that had the streets looking like a scene from I Am Legend. Everything seems to be getting expensive by the minute. The political climate is all over the place. An average American doesn't know how they're gonna make it to the next day. Yet, the clock keeps ticking. No matter how much stuff Americans may complain about. And believe me, it's a lot. Time will keep pushing. Which means American youth will still be expected to hold it down as the next generation to run things. But how can that happen if they're illiterate? Not fully illiterate, but it damn sure seems like it. To keep it all the way real short and maybe not so sweet, these jits can't read, man. It's actually crazy seeing the amount of educators speaking out about this stuff online or even in person. Some are even on their way to giving up. Knowing how to read and write seems to come secondary to other things like paying bills and trying to keep up with the Joneses. And don't get me wrong, I want to run up a bag too. I just don't want to do it while sounding like I have a stutter when it comes to reading.
Today, Junior?
There was a time where reading and writing were legitimately fundamental. Although a lot of it likely was because we have more distractions now than ever, the biggest being a device we carry daily that packs an amount of info and ingenuity that will put Britannica to shame. It would be disingenuous to think reading and writing was taken seriously just because Instagram wasn't around. Now, if you ask me, I would say reading and writing were taken way more seriously because if you didn't know how to read and write, then you were basically finito. Now, obviously, it's a layered conversation, especially when it comes to historical events shaping the way certain people in the country handled their illiteracy. Slaves. But the truth of the matter is, even they recognized that literacy was just as important. With all the hard work and effort put into learning the nuances of literacy, Americans ironically find themselves at a three-lane crossroad for advancement. Build your mind, build your pockets, or build your heart. Considering how social apps have made human interaction easier while also isolating them on a personal level in the weirdest way ever, which I may have to do an episode about at some point. The idea that everyone should be on their best behavior with their thoughts, actions, and intentions have become the new priority. Gaining and understanding information seems to have taken a back seat because of how easy it is to get the info. It's kind of like if you had a treasure chest full of every candy to ever exist, you'd be less inclined to go to the store to get some. The intellectual switch up is kind of weird. As generations continue to pop up and grow, the less attention to detail regarding literacy has been given. And it's not solely the fault of future generations. Actually, there's a huge argument to be had that older generations are equally at fault, if not more. Why? Because they're the ones raising those generations. That 3-lane crossroad isn't just affecting the decisions of the youth, it's also affecting the old heads, the ones who still have to live at a time where the requirements for a successful life has changed to something they were never taught or even could have prepared for. So as much as parents and guardians may love to pour all their time and energy into the little ones' literacy, it's not happening. This type of stuff has been spinning in my head for years, and I have a few questions about it. So, I reached out to someone who could answer them. Meet Shawn DeNight. DeNight is a Jersey-born English and journalism teacher who's been teaching since the 80s. He's also the winner of the prestigious Teacher of the Year Award in 1995 and continues to demonstrate why he was chosen for it throughout the years as a decorated educator throughout the Miami-Dade public school system. Considering how much time he spent working within the education system, I thought he'd be the perfect person to talk about U.S. literacy levels and a possible solution to it. His point of view is interesting to say the least. Nevertheless, there's plenty of perspective to take from it. This is episode 1. Reading is not fundamental. Mr. DeNight, thank you so much for having me. Seriously.
All right.
I'm excited about this mainly because there's so many questions that I have for you.
Okay.
But also just I haven't been in a high school environment in a long time, so coming in here was kind of nostalgic a little bit. I'm not even gonna lie.
Great. I love working in high schools. It was a very significant part of my life, my adolescence. So, I feel energized every time I'm at work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into a little bit about yourself, just so that the audience will be able to know exactly who I'm speaking to.
Okay.
And then we can dive right into what I actually really want to know.
Sure.
So, Mr. Shawn DeNight, you're from New Jersey. What was life like in New Jersey?
Well, grew up in an immigrant community. My mom's the daughter of Italian immigrants. My dad's Irish. They met at Catholic school. So in New Jersey, Irish and Italian married a lot. Small town, industrial. My dad's first job was at a chemical company as a pipe fitter. And he went to school at night because back then all men did military service. So he was of the Korean War era. He didn't serve in combat, but he had a GI Bill that gave him some education benefits. He traveled across the bridge to Philadelphia and he learned transportation management. And it was that job that he got, a little company called Ryder Truck Rental in the 1960s that brought us down here because Ryder's headquarters is down here. Yeah, so I probably spent most of my life here. I was 6 years old when we moved, so I really feel very much tied to the Miami community. So I feel like I'm more Miami than I'm New Jersey.
So that's the reason why you came down, is because of
my dad's job.
Your dad's job.
Yeah, and we came here once, and then his job took us up to the Boston area, and then it took us back here again. And then he lost his job with Ryder, and it looked like we were going to have to move north again, but My dad used to say, son, nobody retires in New Jersey. Yeah. Nobody retires in New York. And he's like, I'm going to do everything I can to stay here. So he found a job here. So we kind of kept our family roots here. And
right. When do you remember like when you got to Miami?
I do.
What was your first memory of being in Miami?
You know what? We stayed at a little hotel in Coconut Grove, because Ryder, which is now in Doral, its headquarters was right there on Bayshore Drive. And the two things we'd never seen before in New Jersey was hippies and coconut trees. And the Grove in the 60s was like a real bohemian hippie gathering. So we saw the hippies. And the only other time we'd seen coconut trees was on Gilligan's Island, which was a syndicated TV show back then. So we had a real sense that we were somewhere different.
Yeah. What was it like going to school in Florida? Like, I mean, you coming from Jersey, so you're essentially in elementary school at that point.
Yeah, so I'd say that my education took place two ways. One, in school, like my mom and dad were Catholic. They met in Catholic school, so they put us in Catholic school when we got here. So I was kind of familiar with Catholic school, having started up there, being here. But what was really, I guess, so exciting for me is that, you know, when I was here, I started getting involved in Little League sports and like the summer recreation programs at parks and things. And like, you just got to see that Miami was a very diverse place, and there were all kinds of people, and like sports does that for people, you know, puts you together in a team or your opponents. So my brothers and I, we all played sports. We all were in the recreation programs, and I think that was like a real formative part of who I was.
How do you think you were like in school? What type of student were you?
Well, I'll tell you two things. That one, that summer recreation experience was like so influential. Even though I'm not sure I liked it so much, my mom had 5 boys, so every summer she made it clear, you boys are not staying home. She dropped us at that summer recreation, and it cost maybe $10 per kid, so that's where we were. But when I got to be a high school person, I actually applied for jobs there, and I became a recreation leader. And I think that's where I kind of planted the seeds of me becoming a teacher, of interacting with kids, learning how to manage kids, how to keep people entertained. I mean, I kept 30 second grade boys playing outside in the summer heat from 9 to 5. I mean, that is like a skill set I learned.
Yeah, that's a lot of energy, especially when you get older.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you start to feel that.
And then academically, because we moved a few times in my childhood, there were some times where I was behind. And my older brothers never felt like they were worried about being behind, but I was a nervous kid and I hated being behind. So there was this, I don't know, this drive for me to try to catch up. Like when I got a D, I was worried. I have an older brother and a younger brother. They had D's that never worried them, never. And they become great successes in life. But I don't know, I guess I took it all more seriously than they did.
So your motivation came from managing, you know, children, especially just at a young age. I mean, what age would you say?
I was probably 16. I started the summer between 11th and 12th grade was my first job in the park system.
Do you think that there was any other time before that you felt like you wanted to be an educator, or was that just the...
Yeah, so that was great.
The genesis?
That's a great question. So, you know, part of the Catholic tradition is service to others. So when I was in high school, our high school was approached by this after-school program in South Miami. It was called the After School House, and we were encouraged to go there and help as after-school tutors to young kids, elementary school kids, and we sometimes served as almost like a big brother, big sister kind of thing. So I had that experience of working with kids from impoverished backgrounds. So that took place when I was in high school, right? And the summer recreation experience kind of taught me about, if you're not managing time well, time drags for everybody. So I learned how to kind of lesson plan there. But I think one of the unwritten things for me is in my family of 5 boys, my youngest brother is deaf. And I feel like having grown up like that with a handicapped brother and, watching his struggles, but also his triumphs, it made me much more sympathetic to the plights of other people. So I think that was part of it too.
Right. So remind me again, what year did you actually start getting into education? I mean, you went to college, you went to grad school, but after graduating, what was that year? What was your rookie year?
Okay, good. So I graduated with a degree from FIU that spoke to the fact that I went to 4 colleges in 4 years. I kept transferring one year after another. I liked everywhere I went. I couldn't find what it was that I was supposed to do with my life. And I guess in the back of my head, I always had teaching back there, but, I considered a career in journalism. I worked part-time at a newspaper in college. My family members all sought their fortunes in business or sales, so I'm thinking maybe that'll be me. I spent my sophomore year at the University of Florida, and I started taking these high-level STEM classes, and I thought, well, God, maybe I'm supposed to be an engineer. Maybe I'm supposed to be a doctor, because I could do the science and things, but that didn't stick. I did my senior year at FIU, and I met with a guidance counselor. He says, look, you're coming here from 3 different colleges. You got this disparate resume. He goes, what are you thinking about? I go, well, maybe I should be an accountant, because I thought I needed to get a job. He's like, listen, your academic background, because my courses were all in the humanities and in foreign languages, and I dabble a little bit in business and computers. He's like, yeah, I don't see you as an accountant. And I appreciated hearing that. So one of my best friends, his older brother, had gone on to get a teaching job at the high school I graduated from, which was Columbus High School here in Miami, another Catholic school that I went to. And that guy, he came from a family of 12. So these are like the Irish Catholic kids that grew up, big, huge families. And his mother, who had raised 12 children, she looked at me and she said, you're supposed to be a teacher. You should go there too. So you have to recognize the wisdom of some of the people around you. She knew me quite well. She saw me grow up. So I applied for a job at Columbus High School during my last semester at FIU, and I got the job. Now, previous to that, I had applied for a job with Pan American Airways, international airline that was, here in Miami, and I had learned a few languages beside English, and I thought, wow, I could travel the world. But that didn't pan out. So it's like you start looking at the doors that close for you, the ones that open, and I'm like, okay, I think teaching's where I'm supposed to be. Yeah. So that was my first year teaching at Columbus High School.
Yeah. How would you describe your rookie year of education?
Well,
that first year.
Well, I'll tell you what, I was 21 years old, and my department chair, he looked at me, and I was a young 21. And look, I went to Columbus High School. I mean, I was in 9th grade with kids that have full beards. And so here I am with a baby face. I'm 21. My department chair he says, kid, don't smile till Christmas. And I'm like, what do you mean by that? He said, you're going to need to control a classroom. You're going to need to manage teenagers. And he says, one thing teenagers know is how to manipulate and take advantage. So if they think that you're strict but you're not smiling that much, you can open up later. But if you try to be their friend, if you try to be too familiar, they'll sense that you're weak. And you'll never be able to recapture that discipline that you could have had if you put that like poker face on. So that was very helpful. The other thing was I was teaching in my old high school, and I really admired teachers. I loved so many of my teachers. I'm a guy that's in love with learning. Like most of my brothers, they were interested in the things that a lot of teenagers are interested in, right? Girlfriends, cars, part-time jobs. And I liked that, but I liked being in AP European history and learning about the Renaissance. No one had ever taught me about the Renaissance, right? And like at Columbus, you had to do 2 years of a foreign language, and most of these Irish Catholic kids that I went, they were just, nobody's going to make me learn Spanish, you know, and they're saying someone or a Cuban, and I'm not going to learn that. And I loved it. I went Spanish 4 all the way up. So my God, when I started teaching, I was like colleagues to some of these teachers that had such a huge impact on me. So I kind of had this feeling that it was like one of them, and I admired them so much. So I did that 1 year. And in the middle of that year, I had applied for a scholarship, an international scholarship, because I had this like travel bug. I wanted to work for Pan American Airways too, and I got a scholarship from the Rotary Clubs, and it was to spend a year in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And I took that, so I had to leave my job at Columbus High School. And when I left that job and I went to Brazil, I had a year to think about where my career is. Am I going to stay in teaching, or am I going to do something else? And I had read a lot about, because I'm a big newspaper reader, I'd read a lot about Edison High School in Miami when I was like a young man. And Edison was like a very well-known inner city school. It was in the news a lot for good things. And so when I was down there in Brazil, I applied to Edison, and I applied to a couple other high schools here in Miami. And Edison offered me an interview when I finished my scholarship year. And they offered me a job. And having taught for a year really helped me out a lot, because I wasn't some new guy, you know. And I ended up teaching at Edison for 16 years. And then after 16 years there, I'm in my 20th year here. So I think I'm in my 37th year of teaching.
Yeah, well seasoned. Let's get right into it, because, and is a good thing that you actually spoke about that, because I really wanted to know from your viewpoint, since you've been in education for so long, the comparisons between then, well, actually 3 comparisons. One, when you were in school. The second, when you started in education, and now. What's the stark difference between all of them in terms of quality of education, whether it's the curriculum or the classes or the structure or just intentions, whatever, but how does all 3 of those actually differ between each other?
Okay, that's a great question. So I could say that 2 things that I think anybody who's been in education, like from now going back, even if you weren't here, the things you cannot like fail to see is that choice in education is a big deal now. The old days, if you wanted choice, you could either choose to go to your local public school, or you could go to a private school. So that's changed. Public schools have had to learn how to adapt in this era of choice here. Like, kids don't have to go to their neighborhood school. They could go to any school in their school district. They could go to a charter school. They can get a voucher to go to a private school. So that's like a real big thing. One thing that has not changed, I'd like to say, which is a nice thing, is like the nature of teaching adolescents. When I tell people that I teach high school, they're like, oh my God, it must be awful teaching teenagers. Because everyone sees teenagers as being disrespectful, disconnected, and I don't see that where I work. Whether I worked at Edison High School or Columbus High School or Miami High, I see that kids will give you what you ask of them, but you have to create this atmosphere like where they want to contribute, right? Here's the other thing that has changed: accountability. In the old days, I don't care if you worked at a private school or a public school. If you were a teacher, you had a lot of autonomy. And what you did in your classroom when the door was closed, nobody really knew. And with this accountability movement where you're being measured in some way by the performance of your students on some kind of standardized test, like, I think that's a good thing. Even though, like, there's a lot of complaints and counter arguments against it, we do need to be accountable. And like when I was a new teacher, I kind of had some resentments for some of the older teachers in my school because there were times when they would announce layoffs in the school system when the budget was tight. And the way they would do layoffs is they'd lay off the younger teachers because you were there last and they valued seniority. And when I would compare my teaching as a young teacher to some of the veteran teachers that weren't as inspired, because there were many veteran teachers that I would bow down to, but there were some veteran teachers that they were just like whiling away their time. They got exposed by this new system of accountability. You know.
How so?
Well, all of a sudden, if there's 4 teachers in your school and they're all teaching 9th grade English, and now we're holding everyone accountable, all of a sudden, this teacher right here, he's got a 70% passing rate on this state exam, but his 3 colleagues are at 40%, and they're all teaching the same kids from the same school, the same neighborhood. So something's going right for this guy. Something's not going so right for them. So what is it? Is it the influence of the teacher? Now, if the students didn't all come from the same neighborhood, the same school, you could claim, oh, my students are different. But man, we're in the same department. We teach the same kids, but someone's pushing these kids to achieve at a higher level. So that's what accountability did. That you can't just... If you love teaching haiku and you want to teach haiku, in the old days you could do that. Nobody would tell you don't teach haiku. But now we got a curriculum that says, look, you need to prepare your student for these benchmark tests at different times of their career. So it falls heaviest on English teachers and math teachers. But some of the other core subjects are being tested that way.
So in your opinion, or not even just in your opinion, but just in your experience, what was that adjustment period like to see that being implemented?
Okay, so that was hard. That was hard. So I'll tell you that after 16 years of teaching at Edison High School, I was dismissed from that job. They would say, the word they use is I was involuntarily transferred. Transfer, I get sent to another school. Involuntary, nobody asked me if I wanted to go. So Edison was kind of right there in the thick of things when the accountability movement started. It really began with Governor Jeb Bush, where they started grading schools. So one thing I've seen is that the grading of schools has become much fairer and much more scientific. But in the old days, it was like a blunt instrument. How many of your students can pass this achievement test in reading and math? So Edison served an impoverished population as well as a largely immigrant population, and most of the immigrant kids were coming from Haiti, which the kids came with very little education to begin with. So our test scores were always, when you compared us to Coral Gables High School and Palmetto High School, we were there like that. They're up here, we're down here. We're destined to be the ones that get the F. Now later, what the school systems have done is there's maybe 12 criteria to grade a school. And one of them, which I love, is what is the achievement in the lowest quartile of your student population? So even a school like Palmetto High School and Coral Gables High School, they have a lowest quartile, their lowest achievement. What are they doing to push those kids to higher achievement? That metric wasn't there at the beginning. So another metric is how many of your students are taking advanced placement classes? How many are getting passing scores there? How many of them are getting industry certification in vocational fields? So these are all different ways to measure like the effectiveness of a school. But in the old days, it was just your math scores and your reading scores. And if you were a school in an immigrant neighborhood or a school in an impoverished neighborhood, it was very hard to beat the odds there.
Yeah.
You got that?
Yeah. Great segue, because this is the meat and potatoes of what I really want to get into, which is literacy. That's a huge thing, especially in 2026 now, because we're in 2026.
Yeah.
But that's a huge issue that's going on in the United States education system. And so I want to know, like, what do you think about the literacy drops here? And I want to read you some stats, because I looked up some stats, because this is something that really just tripped me out. So according to the 2024 report from the NAEP, right? So that's the National Assessment of Educational Progress.
I know it.
Average reading scores across each U.S. state have declined for 4th and 8th grade students by 2 points since 2022. The only district to see an increase is Atlanta Public Schools, which is under the TUDA, the Trial Urban District Assessment. And that was 4th grade reading, so only 4th grade. For 12th grade, the reading scores declined by 3 points compared to scores in 2019, which turns out to be the lowest score ever recorded for high school seniors. Coincidentally, according to the 2021 NAEP study, 4th grade students in Florida have done better in reading than the majority of the U.S., ranging between 21 to 30% of students falling below basic reading levels. On the other hand, though, 8th grade in Florida falls in the 31 to 40% range, where the majority of the nation's numbers at the grade level is. And keep in mind, these scores are reported at various but consistent times. Like 4th and 8th grade, they do it every 2 years. 12th grade, about every 4 years, etc. When you hear those type of stats, what come to mind?
Well, I don't want to sound dismissive of those, but the NAEP statistics have been cited for 50 years at least, and they're always cited in a negative context. Okay, so if things are bad now, they weren't better 10 years ago. If you keep following the NAEP results, to achieve proficiency is like a tiny fraction. So satisfactory is like this middle ground, but not proficient is always cause for alarm. But let's go back to Florida. Like, Florida has been testing its students. We've been doing this accountability here longer than other states have. So our kids kind of test better. So that's why we sometimes show up higher in national rankings. And our previous superintendent, he put a lot of effort into trying to turn around what they would call failing schools. And if you were one of those schools, he sent his team in, and his team was no nonsense. You guys were getting like the medicine. And the medicine was, your students are now going to get 2 periods of language arts and 2 periods of math in their schedule. They might lose their elective art class, they might lose their PE class, but under his leadership and the leadership that followed with the current superintendent, Miami-Dade County is ranked as an A school district, and it's been that way for 6 years running. So by one metric, you could say Miami-Dade County is doing pretty good. And our superintendent, based on his work, he was offered jobs in New York City, he's at LA now. So I think people recognize that in Dade County, there's some good things going on here. So the kids I teach a lot of the advanced kids here at school, but I used to teach intensive reading. And you know, what kids need who are in intensive reading is they need a lot of practice. They need a lot of guidance. A lot of your kids who are in intensive reading are kids that have struggled since elementary school. They're kids who are new immigrants that are learning the language. But I'll tell you this, I'd bet my last penny that most kids in school read better than their parents.
Whoa.
I'd bet money on that.
Why do you think that? That is big to say.
I'd like to do the research study, and the reason I say that is because I see what's demanded of these kids. Like, to pass these reading tests, like you can't get your diploma now without passing the required reading test. And Florida's been like that for even before Jeb Bush. But sometimes the tests were easier or harder. These are very rigorous reading tests. Mm-hmm. So, like, for a kid to be able to do that, and a lot of these kids, their parents are not as educated as the kids are.
Yeah.
Some of the parents didn't finish high school.
Yeah.
Some of them might have a little college while their children are like going to go to college. Mm-hmm. Some of the kids, their parents don't speak English, but these kids speak English. So I'd stick by that. I'd say that kids nowadays read better than their parents.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. But I do want to ask, because you teach both dual enrollment journalism classes as well as English. So you're very closely connected to seeing how literacy is formed throughout, a child's adolescence.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I should say. What do you see when you see the literacy? I mean, even down to just the reason why literacy issues may be here.
Let's go back to your specialty, media literacy.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about media literacy.
Yeah, that's a big one right there.
So honest, what does it mean to be literate? Okay, so I can read the words, I can sound them out. But I read a study the other day that 90% of this sample of just average Americans, if you presented them with two articles, one that was clearly opinion-based and biased, and the other that was fact-based and informative, they couldn't tell you the difference between the two texts. Okay, so these people can read, right? But detecting bias, determining objectivity, these are almost political issues, because in our country we can't even agree on what the truth is. But in its most basic form of literacy, being able to read and comprehend, I would say that kids are doing better. Now, I do need to point out that during the COVID era, everybody agrees there was a huge decline. Yeah. And if that decline told us anything, it made us question the value of online education, because a lot of people were predicting, wow, with the internet and with like distance learning programs, man, we won't even need teachers. And what we saw is that kids did not do well in a purely online environment. Some kids, it was a fraction of them. So it kind of spoke to the need for kids to be back in classrooms with real teachers, with real classmates, having social interactions, right? But like that thing's starting to bottom out and come up. But that was like a 4-year bubble, that affected that data.
Yeah. I remember that time. It was pretty weird. Just learning things differently. It was weird, don't you say?
It was just you were just getting assigned a lot of work. Kids got assigned a lot, but there was very little teaching. My sympathy went to the kindergarten teacher who's trying to keep 20 kindergarten kids engaged, where in a normal kindergarten class you sit on the reading mat, you come up and you do show and tell, and you're trying to do this on a computer. Yeah, so again, I'm more optimistic about what the statistics say or not. And I commented this to a friend of mine. He's a political partisan. He always baits me with what's wrong with public education and everything. And this thing about of reading and what does the data say? Education has been politicized, and maybe that's not a new thing, but if you're running for governor, one of the greatest things you can say on the campaign trail is, we have a crisis in education. So when your predecessors of the opposite political party, that's a great political strategy, because you say his way of doing things. But here in Florida, we've had continuous Republican leadership in public schools since Jeb Bush. So, I mean, this is going back almost 30 years. So every candidate will say there's a crisis. So then, wait, your predecessor, wasn't he doing his job? But everybody claims there's a crisis in education that needs to be fixed. Here's another statistic I'd like to share with you.
I'll do it.
Okay, have you ever heard of the Gallup polling organization? Gallup, Gallup.
No.
So
Break it down.
Gallup is probably one of these legacy organizations, but like the Pew Research Center, they do big surveys of the population. So here's a statistic that remains constant from year to year. They do the state of American education. They've been doing that for 50 years. So one question they ask the respondents is, how happy are you with the education your children are receiving? And most respondents, this means more than 50%, declare that they're either happy or extremely happy with their children's education. Okay, that doesn't mean there aren't any problems, but now listen how the responses change when you ask this question. How happy are you with the state of education in America? Now, that's like a real political question. And so when you ask that question, people will say like 10% agree that they're happy, even though they're happy with their children's education. So like, what does that tell you? I mean, is there some disconnect? Like, as it affects me personally, things are going pretty good. I like my kids' school, I like their teachers. But when you ask me the state of education, that's now a political question. And like, people, they tend to react more emotionally when you're asking them political questions than when you're asking them like personal connection kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not saying the schools are without their problems, but my friend who always baits me, he's a lawyer. And I'm like, hey, let's stop talking about the education. Let's talk about the legal system.
Yeah.
My wife had a business dispute and like she got sued and like all of a sudden we need a $5,000 retainer.
Yeah.
What's up with that?
Yeah.
Right. And then you pay the retainer and all of a sudden the thing gets dismissed and like, we just paid $5,000 for what? But you know what I'm saying?
That's what we call pulling the Uno reverse card. You pulled the Uno reverse card on.
Oh, I like that. I'm going to remember. But I'm just saying that any societal organization, right? They're imperfect. But I'd say like if you compared like the education system to like the law enforcement system, we're doing pretty good. Compared to law enforcement, I'd say if we're talking about real estate and how unaffordable housing is, I think we do a better job of educating people than however these real estate people are supposed to provide housing. Like they've got their problems too. Mm-hmm. So don't act like we're the ones that got all the big problems, right?
Mm-hmm. I get it. So I do want to transition, right? Because and even off mic, we was just speaking about just the emergence of technology and the advancement of technology. You know, even when you brought up, you know, virtual reality, and then now we're dealing with AI. And so it's just constant learning new methods, new things that maybe we thought about years ago as kind of like a little play Jetsons world type situation. But now we're in it. And now we're talking to our phones and our phones are talking back to us and giving us all the information that we want and all that good stuff. It's insane. What does that look like from your perspective, being in the education system for so long, but not just that, but actually teaching, I would say, future journalists?
Well, future readers and writers too.
That's
yeah. Probably journalism is an elective class, but I teach like the required English classes. So, you know, first it makes you reflect because maybe I'm just an old dog and I need to retire because maybe I'm teaching kids these old things that won't help them.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't know. But the other day, my daughter contacted my wife and said, I'm applying for this internship and I don't know how to write a cover letter. So my wife, who has experience, like she talked her through that. So I guess you could have AI write one for you, right? But my wife, like, she kind of knew this from the inside because she's applied for a lot of jobs. So is that still a valuable skill to teach someone to write a cover letter? How about penmanship? I mean, in elementary school, you used to learn how to write cursive and stuff.
Yes.
But now we got these computers and we got keyboards. So, like, there's some people,
you have a smart board over there.
Yeah, there's some people saying that we should still teach penmanship, and then we're like, but there's only so many hours in the day. So, what are like what are the non-negotiables? Right? So here is where you have to cede some of your autonomy to your supervising organization. So for me, I work for a school system that has a curriculum that mirrors what the state wants. So I'm hired to deliver instruction. I'm not hired to determine the curriculum. And I'm okay with that. You know, like, I follow orders well. And if I believe in the curriculum, and I usually do, I mean, people who write these are well educated in things. So, let me give you an example of a couple subjects that I teach.
Sure.
So I teach dual enrollment, ENC 1101, 1102, required college composition. We teach it here in high school. So I didn't have to invent my curriculum. It was invented by FIU and later, like, transferred to Miami-Dade, and that's how we got it. And I love the curriculum. And there's a lot of things I like about it. So I can just say that, like, I'm using this product. I know it comes from reputable sources. I don't question whether I should be doing it or not. And then a couple of the other classes I teach are from the College Board, which is like a worldwide organization. And their curricula is like spelled out in black and white. And if you want kids to take AP Seminar, AP Research, the classes I teach, and we're accountable because kids get scored, and we can compare, like, my performance to other teachers of the same subject in the district. So, like, I welcome a model like that where someone's providing me with a really impressive curriculum, something that I feel like I can teach, and I can see that my students are receptive to it, like, it's good. Now, there's other classes where I kind of design my own curriculum because there's not much out there. So for journalism, it's an elective class. I have a lot of freedom. And I teach an SAT, ACT preparation class. And I design that curriculum too. Now, those two classes, being electives, they're not, like, I'm not as accountable because there's not any testing that would show you how well I do that compared to others. So I guess when we're talking at large about school systems, that if you trust your state and you trust your local school board, then you can trust they're getting a good curriculum. And you're hoping that they've studied the place of AI in the curriculum, because I don't feel like I can judge where it belongs.
Yeah.
You know, I do professional development. I hear what's out there. I have to measure that against what I see kids using it for. I guess the biggest worry I have is if I'm trying to train independent readers, writers, researchers, and thinkers. I'm training them to be independent. If they're over relying on this one tool and I can't stop them from it, then I guess I'd have to say, well, I did my best, but they opted for that.
Right.
Yeah. And that's no different than like 50 years ago. People were cheating. And like people said, like this one guy, he cheated his way through high school, and then he got into college, and then he cheated his way through college, and then he got into law school, and then he cheated his way through law school, and he became a famous attorney, and he had a car accident, and he had like a minor injury, but he went to the operating room, but the doctor who operated on was a doctor who cheated his way through medical school. So it's like this idea like karma's going to catch up with you. I mean, don't people sometimes get caught up in their schemes? And sometimes kids don't know what's good for them. I mean, kids have been copying forever, and we've been trying. I just feel like AI is a very powerful tool, but teachers can detect it. Now, how we get them, as we heard here, that some teachers are requiring kids write things out by hand. But there are things, I can teach you to be a good writer. I can teach you to be a better reader. But you got to invest with me.
Yeah.
I need your time. I need your attention, right? So I need my students to give that, and they do. I have very few discipline. That's another thing I tell you is changing about schools. Discipline in schools is much better than
really.
Yes, I don't see.
Why do you think?
I don't see fighting anymore. I mean, this school wasn't a huge fight school, but we'd see some fights around. You don't see fighting anymore. If there's fighting, maybe it takes place outside of school.
Yeah.
There's zero tolerance for that.
Yeah.
I see kids being more respectful to each other. I see less name calling. I see acceptance for kids who are very different. Here's something.
I can see that.
Here's something I'll tell you that teachers, police officers, and nurses in public hospitals.
Okay.
I think what the three of us have in common is we see the whole range of humanity in the course of our working days. So for a lot of people that have political debates about things like, say, transgender athletes or which bathroom should transgender people use, for most people it's like a moot point. They don't know anybody like that. But I see kids here that they present as female, although I think they're biologically male. We don't create a hostile, we don't ostracize them as teachers, and the students don't either. Back when I was a kid, there was a lot of name calling of kids.
Yeah.
And I feel like people, at least the younger people, they're a little bit more respectful than my generation was.
Wow. That's actually, it's kind of surprising, but not really, because when you really think about the internet and how it actually kind of fused everyone together, not even just in the same regional spot, but even just internationally, and you have all these type of ideas, ideologies, personalities, all types of stuff happening in one spot, and with all children, which in this case, I mean, your students, other students, and they're seeing these things, and they're kind of, I guess in a way, becoming a hive mind of equality.
Yeah, you'd like to think they're taking the good.
Yeah.
And you'd like to believe they're leaving behind the bad, but we know that some of the bad is the social comparison, the online bullying. Kids might say things online that they wouldn't dare say in a public forum, right? So the hive mind, yeah, maybe that's it. But I don't know how to explain it. I just can tell you what I see. In my day, I mean, some of the slurs we used for people that were, and then my father's generation was worse.
Worse, yeah.
Than your granddaddy's day. It was right? So
super no filter.
Yes. So now I think people are checking some of that.
Yeah.
And maybe that's just a reflection of how multicultural we are, and how different, how accepting of difference we are.
Do you see a shift in overall creativity with the emergence of AI?
No, because the kids who want to be creative, they can be creative. There's a lot of kids who are just trying to get the assignment done. I love this change in my curriculum in my dual enrollment class. In ENC 1102, which is the second of your 2 required writing classes, after a semester of researching an argumentative problem in the world, after you write informatively about it, which is where you're neutral, you're not taking a position, we allow the kids to write argumentatively. And I like that. Wouldn't you like the person arguing for something to be informed about it?
Absolutely.
Because you don't see that a lot in the online world. People aren't informed about a lot of stuff.
At all.
Yeah.
And don't care really either.
Yeah. So all of a sudden, the kids have the opportunity to argue. And instead of me asking for a 10-page paper, I'm asking for an 800-word kind of op-ed style argument which is what like people's tolerance is to read and engage with. But after they write in a traditional format, then they have the option, no, they have the requirement to express that same argument, your position, but in some other form. And I don't define what it is. So for some kids, I get like these protest posters back here, not one more deportation. I get some kids that do a podcast. I get some kids that do like YouTube videos. I had one kid write a song. So I think the creativity is there if we allow the opportunity for it.
Right.
You get it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I'm not so good to know if kids who are creating these protest posters, they're just going to Canva and they're finding them there and they're just putting it in the format. Like, I don't have enough time to find out all the ways kids cheat. Yeah. Right? But they do have to present it. And like the other thing I like is beside them producing this traditional text, they have to create the scoring rubric for it. So they pick the criteria by which I'm going to grade it. So I go to them, I go, look, if you're going to be graded on a protest poster, what's the criteria for grading a protest poster? Right? So one criteria we came up with one year is that if someone hits you over the head with it, it won't break. So we don't hit kids over the head, but we do like test it on a desk, and if it breaks, that's one way you can fail on a protest poster, right?
Do you think that just giving them that type of autonomy, do you think that kind of just strengthens their ability to make choices and to lead and to...
Yeah, so in journalism is probably the least restrictive class I take. I allow kids to pick their own topics. So if they want to write something, it has to be one of the 9 genres that we publish. So we publish opinion, 2 kinds of opinion, something I believe or something that I have done, and I want to comment on something I've done. News, feature story about a school-related issue, feature story of something outside of school, personality profiles about classmates or about teachers. So I give kids these choices, right? And some kids run with it. I've got this one kid, I mean, a lot of times you'll see him, he's got his head down. He looks like he's not paying attention. And his first story he told me, I know what I want to write about. I go, what? He goes, I want to write about me getting a job. I go, oh, is it going to be a first-person story? I go, yeah. I go, well, what's the hook? He goes, you know how long it took me to get a job? I go, how long? It took me a year. He says, I filled out like X number of applications, and I finally got a job. And he says, I think I can write this to kids. I can teach them what I learned. I'm like, wow. And he took a picture of himself at work, you know. So he was really proud. He was motivated. So his second story, I go, what do you want to write? He goes, I want to write another opinion piece. I'm like, okay. So I allow them like their first 2 stories free. I go, what do you want to write about? He goes, you know I'm the youngest of 6 kids? I go, yeah. I go, so he goes, I want to write about what it's like being the youngest of 6 kids. I go, well, that's your experience. Go ahead. And he does it. And like, he's very proud of what he writes. He doesn't publicize it as much as because I hold the kids responsible for like sending out the link and generating readers. But man, his stuff's online and he's proud of it. I know he's proud of it. And then sometimes I'll get kids write something and it goes viral. Like in ways that I would never predict. Like this one kid told me, he goes, Mr. Knight, I want to write about my experience with Eastern Christianity. And I go to him, I go, John Luca, look, I'm respectful. I know religion's important to you, but I just don't see that there's going to be many readers for this. He goes, well, that's what I want to write about. I go, look, you can write about it. I go, I don't think you're going to get many readers. And the kid got like 150 readers. Wow. You know, I mean, when you're keeping track, 150?
Yeah, I mean, think about 150 people in this room.
Here, this, just like at this school.
Yeah.
And like, so kids surprise me a lot. Like when they go with their gut, a lot of times they get the readers, they get the attention. I got this one girl, she skips my class at least 50% of the time. And every time there's a deadline, she's absent. But she wrote a feature story on students' reaction to the Epstein controversy. And she read it today because I only picked some to read theirs out loud. And man, she was so proud. And the kids, they were all silent. I mean, she had something.
Wow.
But that's what I like about journalism. I have some kids who aren't writers. They're not great students, but they just might write one thing that they're proud of.
Seeing your face explain this is encouraging because, I mean, we spoke about it off mic. Just the way how time is moving and certain things are shifting, especially in the media field. You know, a lot of layoffs is happening, a lot of transitions is happening from, you know, legacy media to now digital media to now whatever it is now, meta media. Like I at this point, I'm calling it meta media because it's some new level. But seeing your face say this, it seems like you're a lot more encouraged with what you're seeing with these generation of kids, that even though they have certain things going against them, whether it's in research or whether it's just in the time, something that we're not in control of, but they're finding their way through in some way, whether it's through just being an independent creative or even recognizing others' creativity. I mean, how is that sitting in the classroom, seeing this happen, everything blossoming, all the ideas just bubbling up, and you sit back in your chair by your desk while everyone is writing their pieces? What goes through your mind at that point?
Well, first of all, I don't sit behind the chair while they're writing. I walk around and I pick up their work when it's in process. Can I read that? Right? But I'll tell you what, that's why I love my job. I mean, I swear to God, I mean, it's like being a gardener, right? You plant the seeds, and like, I'm telling you, I got like 34 kids in this class. The air conditioner's not working, and they're all like, hey, check my story plan. Hey, can I go interview? I mean, I think my experience as a teacher was that my teachers invited me into the conversation. And whether that conversation was about AP European history, or it was about calculus, or it was about learning Spanish, they invited me in and they were enthusiastic about their subject. And see, I think that's how I am. Like, I've been touched that way. Like, I love this field of communication and writing. Do you remember the first time you wrote something and it got published?
Oh, man.
I mean, even if 7 people read it, because we didn't even have a way to track our readers, man, I'd go back and I'd look at that and it's like, man, I did that.
Yeah.
I did that. And like, I think that still sells. Like, people will do that. And even outside journalism, it's like, man, you wrote this essay.
Yeah.
And I'll tell kids, like, because I make kids do a lot of oral presentation, and that's one way to address the AI thing. Like, AI can write your speech, but you got to deliver it. And there's certain skills that you need in speech that, you know, aren't obvious in writing. So one of my oral presentations in ENC 1102 is to pick what you consider a perfect paragraph that on an essay that's already been graded. You project it on the screen, you read it to your classmate, and then you tell them how you made that. How did you make that such a great paragraph? So these are like on challenging assignments, like on a rhetorical critique, which is hard to write, an informative essay where you're citing sources. But man, kids have great pride. Like, I did this, and like, AI didn't do that. And how'd you do that? Oh, well, this part I did because of this. People don't want to be taught to be robots. I think kids do it when they're struggling, or they do it in classes where the teachers don't pay attention. Yeah. So, I mean, you've had this experience where your teacher made you do this assignment. You had a feeling he didn't read it, and you wrote something in the middle, and he wrote right past it. So, like, but when kids know you're paying attention, and that, here's the other thing, you got to have your discipline down. You have to maintain control of a crowd, and you have to have systems where kids can produce and turn in and be assessed. Like, it can't be a free-for-all in here. You know what I mean? So here's one of the few like benefits of being older. I'm so good at my job. I have no discipline problems. Like sometimes I'll turn around and I'm like, when I was a new teacher, if I had turned around right now, stuff would be flying across the room, kids be yelling, screaming. I'm like, no, it's just, maybe it's my gray hair. I don't know what it is, but I don't have any classroom management problems. So I create this environment where kids feel like, one, it's safe to respond, that I value your work, like it's fulfilling to respond, and like I'm pushing you to higher levels of stuff. So, okay, you wrote a literacy narrative in ANC 1101. Let's see if you can do a rhetorical critique. That's really hard. Mm-hmm. All right? So people want to be pushed. People want to, like, what's the word? Realize their potential. Yeah. So teachers need to do that. Like, teachers just can't drone on. Remember the Charlie Brown cartoons where the teacher, whenever the teacher would talk, it'd sound like, wah, 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 wah. Like that's how no one listened. No one listened, right? So I warn teachers, I say, hey man, what are they paying you to do? Because I do mentoring for new teachers. And I'm currently working with social studies teachers. And their curriculum's so much different than mine, but I go to them, I go, man, what do they pay you for? Like, just to talk about your PowerPoints? I mean, is that all you can do? And like, for a first-year teacher, that might be acceptable, that kids will pay attention. But I tell them, I say, look, if there's competition for your job, if they can hire someone new instead of you, like, what can you show that you can do? Yeah. What can you do? Look, the school system brought you all these kids. They gave you this curriculum. You got a smart board. What can you do with it? Do something, I tell them, right? Do something.
That really should be the motto at this point. Yeah. Do something.
Do something with it. And most teachers, this school's great. I'm telling you, this school, A school, A school, A school. And this school has like some challenging demographics about it. But man, there's some teachers here that give 1,000%. My colleague in the chemistry department over there, he runs the advanced placement program for the school and he teaches too. He comes out here on Saturdays. If a family is thinking about Miami High and they want to see it, he'll come out here on a Saturday. He'll give you a private guided tour of this school because there's competition. There's charter schools down there. There's a voucher that might pay half your tuition somewhere else.
Yep.
And we got people here that are like fighting for customers, man. And they're putting programs on where kids want to be here. And that's like the secret, I think, for schools to survive. You need like your faculty invested. You know, they need to be trained a little bit in customer service too, right?
Absolutely.
But you got to offer a product that parents want to buy for their children. And this school does it. It really does.
Amazing. Hey, Mr. DeNight, I appreciate it.
Wow, I really enjoyed talking to you. At first, I didn't know if you're some internet troll or something.
No, man.
I got an email out of the blue, and I'm like, what is this?
No, man, I'm a real deal journalist.
You are. When I called, remember we talked on the phone, and like I was doing my due diligence. I'm like, how do I know you got a hitman? He's gonna come here. He's gonna blow me away.
Yeah. No. When you asked me all the questions on the phone about just my resume and everything, and I broke it down to you. I mean, I think some people get really surprised at my resume because I'm just myself, so I'm not like political. I'm not
that's how clean. Journalists are supposed to be, though, right?
You know what I mean? I'm just myself. So when I tell people that I'm a journalist, and I've produced for this and did this and this, they're just like, wow, like, whoa. But
and you're proud of being a journalist. Like, I'm proud of being a teacher.
Yeah, I'm proud of being a creative in general.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Look, it's one small measure of what I have in life, but I'm real proud of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Before I let you go, I do want to ask, if there was one thing that you could change about the education system, what would it be?
If I could stop people from politicizing. So, I mean, I'll give you an example just today. So, I mean, Florida's so politicized on education right now. Everything's an issue. So our current commissioner of education, he has this open communication to all teachers in the state, right? And like, he sent something out where he speaks disparagingly of the United Teachers of Dade, which is the union here. Now, I'm not a member of the union, but like, I don't disparage my colleagues. I don't disparage people who are in the same business as me who want the same things. So in this email he sends out to every teacher in Florida, it was like this kind of combative, these people brought suit against the Department of Education, it was frivolous and they lost and they're losers and this and that, and like, how does that make people want to get up and go to work in the morning? You know what I mean? He feels empowered to say that because the environment here in Florida is very combative. You know, the don't say gay thing, the university professors having to publish their syllabus online for fear that they're saying something that might challenge a student's political beliefs. You know, these are legitimate issues, but like, we don't need, like, we're in this together. You know, like my brothers and I, we don't think the same politically, but I love those guys, you know, and I don't feel that in that kind of memo coming from like the top. I feel like you're trying to divide people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the way I love, like my micro job, like what I do every day. I have no complaints about my day to day. It's the broader issues of creating hostility.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you know, we can be nice to each other.
Yeah.
Right? We can be nice. We can agree to disagree, but the things that really matter, we can be unified about.
I mean, unless, you know, some stronger force comes down on Earth and actually shows us a lesson, like.
Well, I hope it doesn't come to that. I hope we don't need one of the plagues of Babylon or something. Let's shake on it, man.
Appreciate it, Mr. DeNight. I appreciate it. Will we ever get to a solution? Or does the issue get bigger as time goes on? We'll never know until we know. But at least we know something. I'm your host, Cam. Talk to you guys next time.